If you're a beginner in Blender, this tutorial is exactly for you. In this, we'll be covering the basics of modeling, texturing, and rendering. So let's begin. So let's begin with selecting all by pressing A, then press X to delete this. I'll click on delete to confirm the delete. Now I'll press Shift A to add anything in our viewport. So I'll select mesh and click on UV sphere. I'll press the tilt sign to go to the front view. I also want to zoom into the scene, so I'll just press the tilt sign once again and press view selected. And now I'll switch to wireframe mode. By pressing Z, I can open this menu and I'll select wireframe. Now I'll press tab to enter into the edit mode and click and drag to select the top edges. I'll press X and click on vertices to delete all these vertices that I don't require. So this looks good for the base of a vase. Now what I'll do is I'll go to the edge selection mode so that I can select the edges over here. So right now I can click only one edge at the time. If I press Option and click, then I can select all these edges. In case you're using a Windows computer, you'll press Alt and click on any edge to select the entire loop. I'll again press the tilt sign, go to the front view, and start extruding. So the shortcut key to extrude is E. I'll press E, and then I want to extrude into the Z axis, so I'll press Z and move it at the top. This looks good, and I'll try to form a vase by using this. So I'll again press E, then press Z, and I want to scale it down a little to give it a curvature. So I'll press S and scale it a little, just like this. And we can form our entire vase by using the same process. I'll just fast forward it. Now once I have the desired shape, I'll go into the vertex select mode. I'll press this icon, or I'll press 1 and select these vertices at the bottom, and I'll grab them by pressing G and then press Z to move it on the Z axis. And here we have some geometry like this. This looks good for a base of vase, and the top is also good. Now I'll exit the edit mode by pressing tab, and here we have some geometry like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to learn about the subdivision surface modifiers. What do modifiers do? So as this looks a little not smooth, so I'll go into the modifiers tab over here, then press this icon, generate kind of subdivision surface modifier. You can see we have some more geometry and it looks a little more smooth. So I'll increase the levels in the viewport, and it's a lot smoother than before. Now we'll also add a solidify modifier so that it has some thickness. So we'll add generate and go to solidify to add this geometry to this. I think this is good. I'll move it before the subdivision surface so that it has a smoother edge to it. We can also select the object, right click, and then shade smooth for a better finish. So now we are done with modeling of the vase. We'll begin with assigning materials to our vase. So again, I press the tilt sign, go to the front view, add a floor to it and a back wall to it. So I'll press Shift A, mesh, plane. I'll scale the plane and grab it on the Z axis. I'll move it here. We have a floor for this. Now I'll click on this once again, press Shift D to duplicate it, Then I'll press R to rotate it. So we can rotate it this way, or we can press R X so that we are rotating it on the X axis, and then press 90 for 90 degrees. Now we have something like this. I'll move it on the Y axis by grabbing this and pressing Y. It moves on the Y axis along with this cursor. Then I'll press G once again and then press Z to move it on the Z axis. So here we have a floor, a wall at the back. Now I'll also add a camera so that we can render the scene. Press Shift A, camera, and our camera gets added at the center wherever the 3D cursor is. So I'll press my tilt sign, view camera. I can see it shows a view like this. I'll press N to open this menu. Then change the rotation angle to 88 degrees, 0 degrees on y-axis, 0 on z-axis. And then I'll start moving it on the y-axis. So this will be our rendered scene. We don't have any materials assigned to our scene. So I'll press Z or Z, whatever you call it, and then switch to material preview. The material preview doesn't have any materials assigned, so it appears to be white. We can click on our vase and go to the materials tab. We have one existing material over here. I'll select that one from the drop down. Once it's selected, I'll try to change its color. I want it to look a little earthy. I'll go for some color like this. Maybe increase the yes. And I want it to appear a little smooth, so I'll play around with the roughness. I'll reduce the roughness. Something this glossy works for me. Now I'll select the floor and press new over here. I'll double click on this, rename it to floor, and assign some material to it. This color looks fine to me. And then for the back wall, I'd want something new and rename it to wall. I'll assign some color to this. I think a tint of red will complement this scene. I'll leave it right there. So now we have materials assigned to our scene, and now I'll switch to the rendered preview. If I switch to rendered preview, I press Z, then press rendered, and the scene goes dark because we don't have any light source in our scene. Now I'll press Shift A, add the light. In this case, I'll add a point light. I'll grab it on the x-axis, and you can see there's a small light over here. We can have different settings for our light in this scene. So I'll increase the wattage over here and create a light source of 1000 watts. Try to move it. I'll grab it on the z-axis and a little bit on the y-axis. And I'll again check how the preview looks like. Now I'll increase the radius of it. Increasing the radius gives me a little more clarity. I can play around with this light source in the real time, and as we are in EV render engine, we get a real-time preview. I'll also enable ray tracing, which gives us a better preview, better scattering of light, and a more realistic render. I'll try to move this wall closer to the object that we have in our scene. This is what I get. To add a highlight around this object, I'll duplicate this light source and grab it here and the center, the x-axis, reduce its size, use its wattage also, and Once again, if I preview, we can see we have some definition like this, and move it to center at the x-axis. Also increase my radius level. Yes, this looks good. I'll also add a light source on the right side. Grab it on the x-axis and reduce the radius a little. And the power, I'll half it. I'll increase the power on the left-hand side. Maybe a little more. Yeah. So we can play around with the settings, and then we can have a preview over here. To export this as an image, we'll go to the Render tab, Image, and once our image is ready, we can go to Image, Save As, and wherever we want to save it, we can save it. So this was all about how do we create an object in Blender, assign it materials and textures, and export the rendered preview from the Blender file that we are in. Thank you so much for following. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends.